Welcome to TVM's 2017 Oscars special. I'm Bethany Wade.
And I'm Kyle Clouse.
Along with our panelists Dylan Wright, Mike McDonald, and Alex Eiden. It's time to start talking about this year's nominees as well as our predictions, so let's start things off with the production aspect awards. So the first award we're going to talk about is makeup and hairstyling. The nominees in this category are A Man Called Ove, Suicide Squad, and Star Trek Beyond. So I know this one's a bit of a smaller category since it only has 3, but what are you guys all thinking in terms of picks?
Star Trek all the way. I mean, if you look at the different makeups used for like the different aliens within Star Trek, just as a whole, it's amazing. But Beyond, it really like went another step because it added this like whole new planet and this new like evolved kind of human thing in Idris Elba's character, and like his transformation into it is also really impactful. And the character of Jayla is amazingly like made up, and it's just, I mean, it pulls the other categories out of the water. Suicide Squad is a hot mess. I mean, the makeup's great in it, but I don't think it compares to Star Trek.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's amazing as they push the envelope with the Star Trek franchise, this new incarnation of it at least, they're able to seamlessly merge practical in-camera effects with makeup with CGI elements, but they're done tastefully and they're not over the top, they're not excessive.
Yeah, definitely.
So I think they've really pulled that off.
Well, the only one I've seen of these 3 is Suicide Squad, so I don't know anything about Star Trek.
I'm so sorry that you saw Suicide Squad.
Well, yes, the story was a hot mess, and everything else about it was a hot mess.
Yeah.
But the category it's nominated for, it was good.
Yeah.
It wasn't great.
Yeah.
But I think it's
Seemed better.
It could win. I don't
think it shouldn't, though. Like, isn't that automatically means you can say Suicide Squad's an Oscar-winning film?
Yeah, that's exactly why.
I'm going off what Dylan said, though, before. I think Star Trek Beyond is much more deserving of it because you're creating a whole world.
Yeah.
Where Suicide Squad, it was contained within those few characters.
That's fair.
And why were they needed to take off that threat? Like,
I don't
that's beside the
understand
point.
why Ove is nominated, though.
Yeah, that was very shocking. It should have been Deadpool, like we said.
Then why not, like Live by Night? I mean, that's another like sort of period piece.
Yeah.
You know?
I think Live by Night doesn't qualify, but like that's a good point.
Jackie.
Like, I was gonna say Jackie could have
Jackie
gone.
would have been good too. Yeah.
Jackie definitely.
Okay.
Right behind that is costume design. The nominees for this category are Allied, Florence Foster Jenkins, La La Land, Jackie, and Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. So what do you guys think for that?
I have to go Fantastic Beasts. The world that J.K. Rowling has created through the Harry Potter series is so great. And this one's different because it takes place in 1920s America as opposed to like England, which the original films and books took place in. So making the style completely different from the English wizards, like the American wizards are dressed completely differently. Like they're not wearing like the robes. They have like these suit robe combo hybrids that are really like cool looking, and it's believable for the era. And like you factor that into like the period clothing as well. And I think it just deserves the award for that because it's combining fantastical with the historical in such a way that it makes it compelling.
I was a little bit partial to Jackie, and maybe that's because it does kind of reek of Oscar bait in a lot of ways, in its periodness, but there's just something very timeless and classic of the costuming in that film, and it's on point, it's accurate, it's also, I think, very topical and relevant in this day and age. And even though it certainly doesn't have some of those fantastical elements, and it's limited in that regard, I think it's accurate to period and executed very well, very well.
Yeah, I have to base everything off of what Dylan said. There's not much more I could say about it. I really think it's what
Fantastic Beasts.
Completely zoned out. Fantastic Beasts should definitely win. I think costuming in that movie was amazing. The American side of it, they wanted to change it up a little, at least in some way, because it's a different place, a different time,
Different culture too.
Different culture, different everything, really. So I completely agree that Fantastic Beasts should get this award, mainly because it just is so good with it.
I'm going with Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them as well. Because I feel that Colleen Atwood, like Dylan was saying, she brought back the 1920s New York, because it took place in New York, but it was J.K. Rowling's, 1920s New York.
It has her all over it. Yeah.
But I also see Jackie, like we're going to talk about Natalie Portman's performance later, I feel that the costume design for that, like, I believed that Natalie Portman was Jackie Kennedy.
Definitely.
Yeah, you nailed the iconic outfits of Jackie Kennedy in that, which are like which in my opinion are hard to replicate, and really like and on top of that is kind of a period piece, and well, maybe not as intense as like Fantastic Beasts, but you still have to do like 1960s America with that as well. I think that Fantastic Beasts is a valid argument to have in this category because I mean because that is something they had to do where they had to keep the magic world of like London unique, but they also had to keep like kind of connect the two together. But at the same time, I think like to nail down such iconic looks from somebody who still to this day is one of the most stylish first ladies of all time, I think that's definitely a little bit more significant in terms of costuming. Next up, we have production design. The nominees are Arrival, Passengers, Hail Caesar, La La Land, and Fantastic Beasts and Where to Find Them. So, so we kind of completely bypassed La La Land in the last category because we know there's better nominees. I want to make an argument for La La Land in this category though, because I really do think they nail it down with like the design because it's such a colorful film and it really comes from the choices of sets that they used, from like the pier scene for City of Stars to like the dimly lit colored room during like that one argument, the dinner argument scene. Like these little production design things made such a difference in this movie for me.
I think if you if you make that argument with La La Land, you kind of have to make the same argument for Hail Caesar because it has a very similar aesthetic. It's the Coen brothers, and like it has that like Hollywood set kind of theme going on, and it's really well done in a way. And it's also a movie that kind of satires like the industry in a way that La La Land kind of does. A little more biting than La La Land, but definitely. I mean, it's the Coen brothers, and just you're immersed in that world as well. But I also kind of think La La Land should deserve it a little more because it's kind of more sepia toned in Hail Caesar, whereas La La Land is more vibrant in a way.
I agree with you, Dylan. I just love the kind of whimsical, ethereal world and palette of colors that are utilized in La La Land. I think it really transports you, and yet there are scenes that are very grounded in reality. They're everyone's bedroom, living room, or kitchen. That struggling artist in Los Angeles, but then you do have that whimsy, and I think it's lovely. It creates almost an existential experience as you shift from scene to scene, and I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, I agree with Michael. In La La Land, you said it perfectly. It combines the realness of certain situations, like you said, it's everyone's bedroom, it's everyone's kitchen, and then there's those whimsical musical numbers that just explode with color, and the whole setting of L.A. brings you this magical land in the film studios, and then it shows you the real. The toughness of the neighborhoods and where they live in the small apartments. I think it's a nice mixture of what's real and what's actually going on. So that's why I'd probably pick that one.
I have to go with La La Land as well. I think with a musical, you have to have high bar of standards for production design.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
An American in Paris is one of them, or 42nd Street. So I really think that La La Land nailed that, though.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely.
And lastly, out of the production awards, we have film editing. The nominees in this category are Hacksaw Ridge, Hell or High Water, La La Land, Arrival, and Moonlight. So what did you guys think about these nominations?
I have to go with Moonlight. The way that film is edited, because I know everybody else is going to go La La Land because it's a musical, and you have to give an editing award to a musical. But Moonlight, the way it is put together is so artistically beautiful and so well done that it just brings you into the character of Chiron through the editing, through the music, through like the combination of everything. And the way that it cuts from child to teenage to adult is just I can only say beautiful. Like that's the word to describe the editing in Moonlight. Like the cut to the silent footage of like his mother yelling at him, like when he comes back to the house, is just amazing. Like from just that hard cut into it, and then right into the next scene, it took my breath away, and I have to give it to Moonlight.
I think this is a very strong category this year. I think it's going to be a difficult one. I'm almost under the impression there's such strong representation of different styles of editing. La La Land may just take it based on momentum alone as the evening progresses, but wow, this is very difficult for me, to be perfectly honest with you.
Yeah, I couldn't give you a clear answer. If I had to pick one, I guess I'd say La La Land. I know everyone's picking La La Land, but just the quick cuts that suddenly happen that are just parallel to the next scene, I think are beautiful. No matter if it was a musical or not, because I've seen straight films that do those kind of cuts too, and I think they're great. I love editing, so it's something I like doing. So I like to see how movies do it and how films do it, and I think it was just so beautifully done in La La Land. It's a good inspiration for people who want to edit, and maybe if you had a film like myself, it's beautifully done. It's masterful. But like we've said, everyone in this category is deserving. I guess lean towards more towards La La Land for those quick cuts that are really, really nice.
I'm going to have to go with La La Land as well. I feel that the editing there really bridged as far as like their lyrical world that they created with the real world. And like I was saying before, it relates to, it's one of those musicals that actually relates to the reality that we're currently in. Mm-hmm. But I understand Moonlight. I think the editing there was fantastic.
It was.
Yeah, and like La La Land, like especially like what you were saying before, like the whip pans, like that, like it's hard to get that as good as he does, and the fact that he does it multiple times, I feel like he doesn't even use it excessively. He uses it when it's right to do it. Like he uses it like during like the summer montage when he's like whipping it back and forth.
When it makes sense.
Yeah.
When it's not just for fun, it's when the whip pan would make sense. Yeah, it was very well done.
Yeah. Plus just like the different transitions, like especially like the whole like someone in the crowd number where like they transition like with them going from the house to the party, or like with like all the drinks and everything, like that was so wonderfully done. I think it definitely does deserve it. We have to take a short break, but when we come back, we'll talk about the Music, Cinematography, and Visual Effects Awards. Welcome back. Continuing with our discussion of the nominees, it's time to move on to the Visual Effects Award. The nominees are Doctor Strange, Rogue One, Kubo and the Two Strings, The Jungle Book, and Deepwater Horizon. So I think a lot of us are probably thinking on the same page with Doctor Strange, but does anyone? Yeah. So who wants to start off with that?
Yeah, I'll start with Doctor Strange. I think it was absolutely beautiful. The building shape shifting and the portals created and the making something out of nothing was just, it's amazing. And I know we've talked about in the past off camera about how we wish we saw the movie in IMAX because it's such a beautiful movie visually, and I would love to have seen it in IMAX with the sounds and the visuals and everything. It would have been just perfect.
Yeah, I can attest to that because I actually did see it in IMAX 3D. I loved it, and you're right, it really did make the difference. Like, this is one of those movies that really, you got your price paying for the IMAX ticket with it. However, I personally, although I do think Doctor Strange is going to win, I kind of wished that Kubo and the Two Strings would win. And that's more just because we don't get to see stop motion animation that often anymore. Like Lakey Studios, the one that did Kubo, is the only one that really still does it. And I think, if I remember correctly, this is the first time since 1993 that something was nominated, because back then it was Nightmare Before Christmas that was nominated for this award. So I kind of do think it does deserve that, just because we kind of forget about how hard it is to exactly make a stop motion film, especially with claymation.
Yeah, I have to agree with you, Bethany. I think there's something to be said for that handcrafted, just nuanced detail. It's a lost art, but what they're able to capture, particularly with Kubo, it's just visually a spectacle. It truly is. It makes you second guess, like, how can they make water look that way, right? Just the physics, the subtlety of it, the vibrant colors. You don't see that kind of handcrafted art form in animation as much anymore. They're pretty much the only studio in the game that does it, with just maybe a handful of other exceptions. So yeah, I really hope that they pull it out as an underdog.
I'm going to have to go with Rogue One. I mean, as many problems as I have with that picture, I felt that the visual effects, for the most part, were spot on. Industrial Light and Magic always do a fantastic job of making it seem so real and engaging. There was the Grand Moff Tarkin scenes with, which I can't stand when they, digitally recreate somebody. Yeah. Like Peter Cushing, who's just such a legendary, underrated actor. I think that they looked terrible. They did, but for the most part, especially those battle scenes on the beach, it was Star Wars movie, but it was war movie, and it really got me into it that way. I thought that the visual effects were very engaging.
Yeah, it was definitely the best battles I think of like in Star Wars history. Like they were just riveting. But like you said, like I think that Peter Cushing kind of like took the points off, and I mean even the Princess Leia at the end. That like especially so soon after like I mean they didn't know Carrie Fisher would pass away then, but it just comes off as just really I think that looked even worse than the Peter Cushing one, and it was first like it ended the movie, so it kind of left me on
Sour
like
taste.
a little sour note.
Yeah.
But like Doctor Strange was just
I don't know
so good.
if I see the Carrie Fisher thing as a sour note. I mean,
I just think
they created it unbeknownst that she would die right before the movie came out. I thought it was wonderful. I didn't know that was part of it until I saw it.
Yeah.
And I was taken aback by it. I thought it was beautiful, accidentally beautiful that she was like the last shot in the scene. She goes into the New Hope. You know what I mean? It's like it's a beautiful send off for a woman who it was a beautiful accidental send off for a woman. I think they did a fine job with the Peter Cushing thing. It's a little iffy. But with Leia, I think they did well. I mean, she was only in for 5 seconds, so I mean, that's probably why. But I think they did Leia very well, so I don't see a real problem with that. I thought it was really great. I love how far technology has come when it comes to recreating actual people and make it as realistic as possible. And that's a very new. It's in its infancy, that kind of technology. So I don't expect Peter Cushing to look perfect in every shot. Especially when he's in it for so long, for a lot of the movie.
Well, I think it's definitely come leaps and bounds beyond something like Final Fantasy, The Spirit Within, where, I mean, for the time, groundbreaking, but comparatively, you're right, but comparatively, it is incredible, but yes, there is something unnerving and unsettling. It does take you out of the picture when it's used to such excess. Maybe if they weren't so heavy-handed with its execution.
I just don't think it was like the Princess Leia was needed. You could have just shown her from the back and maybe had like the sound clip. They didn't need to show her like full on. Like we know what Princess Leia looks like. Like we're not stupid.
In episode 3, they did it. They had Grandma talking about it real quick. And
it was like they didn't focus on it, and they could. I honestly think they could have just used Vader instead of like focusing on Grand Moff Tarkin and that effect. But
I think he was in more of Rogue One than he was actually in A New Hope.
Honestly.
I'm going to be totally honest. I didn't even know he was CGI until we just had this discussion. So I think that kind of helps the cause.
Yeah, my brother thought so too, but
I didn't know. I thought it was the actualizer.
No, he's been dead.
Well, moving on. Next, we have the category of cinematography. The nominees here are Silence, Lion, Moonlight, Arrival, and La La Land. So, what do you guys think about that?
La La Land all the way, and I'm gonna echo like the same things I said during like the film editing part. It's just so wonderfully done. Like you have like such simple moments, such as like the whole planetarium sequence. You have such things as like such even like subtle, not even scenes, just moments. Like that ending with them like close up, like the close-ups of their face, and like you can see the emotion in it. Or the moment when where Mia's character's walking past the restaurant where Sebastian's playing and she meets him for the first time, and like you can just see her like stop and recognize the music and like want to go in and listen to it. Like such simple moments to the scene. These are such simple moments, but they're captured so well and so beautifully that they encompass the entire picture and they make it what it's supposed to be, and that's important.
I have to take points off for La La Land a little bit because a lot of those scenes you talked about were actually just homages to other musicals, like the planetarium scene where they're spinning through the stars. Like that's a Fred Astaire like homage. Whereas with Moonlight, which is my pick for cinematography, like everything is just so original. Like the vivid colors, the way that the camera rotates around the car, like when we first see Marshall Ali's character right at the beginning, like the way that it covers the baptismal like swimming scene. Like it's just a beautifully crafted movie, and it really just makes you a part of that universe. You feel like you're like a third character, like watching these people, and it's done in a way that just it took my breath away.
A lot like editing, I think this is a very difficult category. On the one hand, you do have the spectacle and the execution of La La Land. It's flights of whimsy and scale, grandiose and intimate. But on the intimate scale, Moonlight to me is that. It's a very intimate portrayal. and the delicate lighting, the subtleties of the lighting in that scene just evokes and provokes, very deep, profound, moving images that stay with you, that really do stay with you. And I just, so it's very difficult for me. It really is. I think it's a tough one.
I have to go with three choices. I think La La Land's gonna win because it's La La Land. But obviously Martin Scorsese is the master of cinematography, so I wouldn't be surprised if he won it.
Rodrigo Prieto, who did the cinematography.
Oh, well, that's what I mean. Well, it was a Scorsese
Well, it's a
movie,
Scorsese picture,
so any movie that involves Scorsese as director is going to be beautiful cinematography.
Sure.
But I would love to see Arrival win. I'm high on Arrival because I just love that movie so much. A lot of shots were just your typical kind of action movie shots, kind of. It wasn't really action, but it wasn't like breathtaking in some aspects. But when they were inside the spaceship, talking with the aliens, it was like you were fully engulfed in that movie. It was like you were actually there talking to aliens that landed on Earth so suddenly. The close-ups of Amy Adams and Jeremy Renner and the other guys in the spacesuits, it was beautiful. Especially when Amy Adams sheds her spacesuit and everybody's telling her not to, and she doesn't. She just becomes like this bare human, like touching, only separated by a piece of glass, this animal or this alien, and it's beautiful. It's so well done. It just brings out such emotion about it's because it's so real. It's like this might be an actual instance of like what would actually happen if aliens it came to Earth. Unlike some superficial thing where it's like aliens attacking Earth or like War of the Worlds, stuff like that. It's very, very real.
But it was real in a procedural sense, I thought. Yeah. My pick has to be, of course, Silence, Rodrigo Prieto, Martin Scorsese picture. I felt the scope was there, but there was also the intimacy with characters. The shots reminded me a lot of. I definitely there was a lot of Kurosawa inspiration there. Red beard,
absolutely.
Yojimbo.
Yep.
There was that scope, and then there was also on the sort of, I don't want to say smaller scale, but looking into the characters, there was that intimacy.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I think that actually Silence is a film that has been neglected and overlooked quite a bit, but definitely in terms of cinematography, breathtaking.
Yep. So next up we have sound mixing. The nominees in this category are La La Land, Rogue One, 13 Hours, The Secret Soldiers of Benghazi, Hacksaw Ridge, and Arrival. So, I feel like we should clarify this because we move on to sound editing first. For anyone who doesn't know, sound mixing specifically is the idea of creating the sound effects that you hear. Like if someone's walking, doing that. For example, in Arrival, maybe the sounds of the aliens. While sound editing is more of just making sure all that sound is coming together and flowing correctly.
Well, I'll go off of what you said, and I'm picking Arrival again. Arrival is really my movie for this whole ceremony. Arrival is the sound of the aliens is so. I want to say real, but because how can I say it? Because we don't really actually know what aliens sound like. But
I do.
I forgot, Dylan, you're an alien.
Yep.
It's just so I imagined this is what aliens would sound like.
Yeah.
This is what a non-human from a different planet would sound like. It was so weird. And when they go into the spaceship, it's almost total silence, and it's a beautiful silence in a way. It's crazy outside with the army and the military surrounding these ships, and then you go in and it's quiet. And then the alien puts its hand on the glass, and it makes this noise, and it's just it shakes you to the core. It's because it's not some crazy over exaggerated alien noise. It's real. It sounds like an animal.
It's real, but there's also that mysticism there.
Yeah. It's what does this sound like?
Yep.
I can't compare it to anything because it's a new sound. It's a sound I've never heard before. I think that's definitely the winner.
Yeah, I hate going back to La La Land, and especially because you can make the argument that it's cheap to give this category to a musical, but you also got to remember that everything that they did was on set. So all of Ryan Gosling's piano playing, any dancing they did, any the tap dancing for A Lovely Night, and the singing itself was all done on set, which that takes a lot. That's a lot harder to do rather than just record it in a studio and lip sync to a track on set. So I feel like something like this definitely La La Land deserves the award for it, but I can definitely see where you're making a case for Arrival as well, because something, especially with a sci-fi film, the sound is everything, making sure that like it does take you out into this world where these aliens could exist.
I think it's too easy to give it to a musical. I'm sorry, I think it is. I think it's too easy to give it to a war movie.
I respect that.
And like, as much as I want to pick Rogue One, because Rogue One is Star Wars, and the way they do it, it's like a war movie in a way, and it makes it so grounded and realistic. I also have to go with Arrival. It really made the aliens like its own thing that's so distinct and so different than anything we really heard before. But it's grounded in realism, just like you guys said, and I just have to give it up for that.
I'm gonna have to go with Arrival as far as like originality.
Yeah.
I want to go Rogue One, but we've kind of heard that before.
True.
You know,
Like
where
we've heard the
Arrival
Death
was
Star, yeah.
there was a lot of originality there.
Yeah, I think for me it would have to be Arrival as well. But just to build upon what you guys already said, something very foreign and alien, yet grounded in something familiar, and that makes it very unnerving. And I thought it was incredibly well done and groundbreaking in many ways.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Well, moving on, we also have sound editing. Now, the nominees for this are La La Land, Deepwater Horizon, Hacksaw Ridge, Arrival, and Sully.
See, the only category Sully's in.
Unfortunately.
And I still can't give it to this. I really have to go with Deepwater Horizon for this, because
Not La La Land?
I know, shocker. I'm not arguing for that.
Astonishing.
But I really do agree with Deepwater Horizon, just because like the entire concept of it, like having like that big rig on the ocean explode, like you got to do it right if you're going to do something big like that, because especially in like a movie that, granted, is more dramatic than action but still has that action component to it, you have to make sure it's done, the sound with it's right. Otherwise, like, it's going to see, the effects are going to seem phony just because the sound's off. And they really did do it right, in my opinion.
Yeah,
Well-
I'm sorry. When it first came out, when I first started trailers for it, I was like, oh, it's just another
Wahlberg movie?
just another Wahlberg action movie, like Patriots Day or and the Transformers movies,
Right.
anything Mark Wahlberg is in anymore is just like, oh, there's another stereotypical action movie, but it kind of transcends that a little bit with the sound. It's a situation you wouldn't think of in a movie, and it's just been overplayed so much. I feel like Lost at Sea, or like in Catastrophe at Sea, Titanic, Poseidon, movies like that. And I think it was just so well done, and because it was so, I want to say, unique in a way, because it was like Catastrophe at Sea, but it had a different spin on it. So the sounds of like the ocean and like wailing on the walls and stuff like that, it was like you were actually there, and I love that. And when I can be engrossed in the movie and realize I'm actually in the theater, not there, I think it does a good job with that.
Yeah.
Going from what you said, make Deepwater Horizon, you had to make it convincing. I think that with La La Land as a musical, there was a lot more convincing that has to go on. You don't want it to look like it's a 2-hour music video. So I feel, as far as like in sound editing, I think La La Land had a lot more to overcome. And I think it did seamlessly and perfectly.
Yeah, I mean, I would have to go with La La Land again. I definitely think that this is a technical category that they really achieved something on another level entirely. As Kyle was saying, there's an expectation there. And there's an expectation there, especially with an original musical, how it's going to be executed. And I think they did that in spades.
Yeah, I do have to go with La La Land for this one, and I do like La La Land. I don't want anybody to think that I don't. It's one of my favorite movies of the year, but I do think it deserves it for this one, because it is really tough to make that sound realistic, and I think they did a really good job with the editing for all the reasons you guys said.
Okay, so I get yelled at when I defend it for sound mixing, but as soon as I defend it for sound editing, that's when you
Hey,
guys
they're
all
two
choose it.
complete-
Well, it's-
Everything else.
well, also,
two
well,
different
speaking of
categories.
categories that La La Land's gonna win, let's move and continue with the theme of sound. We have the original score award. The nominees this year are Lion, La La Land, Passengers, Jackie, and Moonlight. Yeah, okay, I'll let you guys go first since everyone knows my answer.
We all agree.
Well, no, because I want to make a case for Moonlight, as I'm going to be making a case for Moonlight the entire time.
I mean, it's a reasonable case to make.
if you listen to the soundtrack of Moonlight, there are 3 distinct scores for each of the characters. It's the same character, but and it's literally the first score, Little. Each different one is modulated into a different pitch. So it's still the same notes being played, but it's a completely different feel to it. You really get inside the head of the character because you don't really hear the character talk that much. He's a very quiet character, in all of his incarnations. And the score allows you to really understand what his thought process is, what he's thinking at the moment, and it really lets you put yourselves in the shoes of Little, Chiron, and Black. And I think, although La La Land score is beautiful and just timeless, I really think you can make a case for Moonlight.
Yeah, I respect that because, I mean, you are right. It is kind of nice that they have those corresponding scores with it. So that way it's different for each character, but at the same time, it's still the same thing, which is kind of related to the performance of the character itself. Yeah. But at the same time, it's hard to argue against a musical in this category. Granted, we can argue.
I just did, but yeah.
Okay. But it is. But
no,
it's
it
hard
is
to
tough.
It's hard to say that oh yeah, this movie's better, but it's an original musical too.
True.
Which I think we need to keep remembering that, especially when we're talking about about the original song and the original score, because they had to come up with this all on their own. They didn't get to magically just take a show that already existed. So
no, that's true.
With La La Land, it's a musical, so obviously when you listen to that soundtrack, it can be its own standalone experience,
Yeah.
But with Moonlight, I felt that was also its own, different standalone experience. You could listen to the soundtrack of that alone and just, because it describes each character and its chapter, and it's unique to each one.
It's each one's a character study.
Yeah.
Basically.
Okay. Yep. So to conclude this section, we also have this year's original song nominees. The nominees are Can't Stop the Feeling from Trolls, How Far I'll Go from Moana, City of Stars and Audition the Fools Who Dream from La La Land, and The Empty Chair from Jim the James Foley Story. So we're definitely all going to vote Sting, right? That's definitely what we're going for.
I thought that was an incredibly great song. It's Sting.
I mean, all these songs are great, but I think we could all agree that it's a miracle that Trolls got nominated for an Oscar.
Yeah.
I think it was just the matter of they didn't want to nominate La La Land for 3 songs. They were like, okay, what other movie has had a soundtrack this year?
I felt that Gold was really snubbed. Danger Mouse and Iggy Pop. I felt the production of that song, it was fantastic.
Very good. But I want to make a case for How Far I'll Go, because I know everybody else is going to pick City of Stars and Audition. And as much as I love those songs, and I think Audition should win over City of Stars, even though City of Stars is probably going to win, because it's basically the motif of the movie. I think How Far I'll Go is, it moves the story further in a way that City of Stars doesn't. It gets you inside the mindset of the character Moana. It's written by Lin-Manuel Miranda, who is a genius.
No.
And I think I honestly think it's one of the best Disney songs we've had since the Renaissance. It's catchy. All the reprisals are emotional and heartrending, and it really sends your heart soaring in a way that I can't really say City of Stars does. It means so much to the story, and I think if you want to have an original song, I think it needs to serve the story in a way that the other songs I don't think serve the story as much. I mean, Audition, you can make an argument for, but I honestly think How Far I'll Go should win.
I'm going to be nice and not pick on you because I know you're a Hamilton fan. Because
and besides that, even if I wasn't, I would still pick How Far I'll Go because the song really moved me. I was my heart was aching for it was longing for what Moana was longing for in the song.
That's romantic.
I'm a romantic at heart.
It's the 16-year-old. No, but you are right. There is a valid point to be made with that because, then again, we have Lin-Manuel Miranda coming off history making at the Tonys from Hamilton. So it's clear that he has the songwriting talent and all the songs in this movie really do show that emotionalness of it, especially since this is the first movie that has no themes of a love interest at all.
True.
Everyone's Frozen's oh, there's love, true love doesn't mean anything, but you still had Anna falling in love with
two people.
Yeah. So in this movie, you really don't have that at all, which is nice because it focuses much more on the emotions of the character.
Yeah.
I have to go with City of Stars. I feel it's the singing in the rain of our generation. When you think of that song, Singing in the Rain, there's countless people who haven't seen the movie, but they
Yeah.
know the song. So I feel that City of Stars as a song is something that's going to go, stand the test of time.
Well, I mean, you say that. Can't stop the feeling. How many people have seen Trolls?
I get this feeling
How many
inside my
people
bones.
know what
That's
Can't Stop
true.
the Feeling is?
That's very true.
I think I'm going with Can't Stop the Feeling because
I mean, it's the most radio friendly.
because it's the most radio friendly song because everybody knows about it. Sure, City of Stars and Audition are really popular because La La Land's popular. But if Trolls didn't even exist, Can't Stop This Feeling would still be popular. It still wouldn't be nominated, but it would be the most popular song.
But let's be honest, it's just literally tacked onto the soundtrack, just so
Well,
like
yes,
Justin
it came
Timberlake
out-
could get
it came out
nominated.
before the movie came out.
Yeah,
It
like
was a single before the movie
nobody
came
knew
out.
that it was for Trolls. Everyone just thought, oh,
Right,
Justin
right.
Timberlake's coming out with a new single.
I think that's obvious. Well, whatever, man.
Okay.
It doesn't serve the story at all.
Guys, okay, before let's stop the bickering because unfortunately that's all the time we have for this episode. Join us next time where we talk about the remaining nominations, including the acting awards and Best Picture.